0.1.67. The French ERN is 00753015. The Khmer ERN is 0020063, and in English 007033027. And the researcher asks you, do you know who was the chief at K27? And your answer is, I only know that Bong was a chief. He was an office chief, and another one was Dun, about whom I was confused. Dun often came to the warehouse to do inspections, so I conclude that Dun was in charge of the warehouse. So my question to you is, does that help your memory about Dun's frequent inspection visits to the warehouse?
Response. My memory was not that clear at that time because, as I told you, I did not pay attention to what happened, and I never met the person who came to do the inspection. Only upon their leaving the premises that I would hear from colleagues who could be coming to the warehouse. And when it comes to Pang, as the head of the office, it was part of my speculation and or conclusion, because I could feel that if someone who had nothing to do with the warehouses, they would never come to do the inspection.
So, what I should understand is that you have never seen Dun.
Response. I never saw Dun nor Pang.
Tout à l'heure, excusez-moi, monsieur le témoin, apparemment, votre...
Excuse me, Mr. Witness. Apparently, your last answer was not entirely clear, so I'm just going to ask once again, should I understand from that answer you gave us that you never saw Dun at the warehouse?
Vous ne l'avez...
You yourself.
Response. No, I never saw him. But as I said earlier on, some senior people were seen coming to the warehouses, though I don't know their names. And again, regarding Pang and Dun, it was my pure surmise that they were overly in charge of the warehouse or the office. If they had nothing to do with this, they would never pay a visit to the warehouses.
You mentioned a visit by Mr. Kyosampan to the warehouse, while adding that you don't remember the date. In E3/469 that you have before you, on top, on the left, you have the Khmer reference 00172052. The French ERN is 00524390, and in English 00205113, where you refer to Khieu Sampan's visit to the warehouse, and you say that Khieu Sampan was startled to learn that cadre members did not have enough to eat, that they only ate gruel. Now, how did you know that he was startled, and on what particular occasion did you talk about the cadre members' diet and the gruel they were eating?
Response. I never forget that I have said Mr. Khieu Sampan was startled to learn that cadre members did not have enough to eat. It happened when subordinates at the warehouses had to be called to attend sessions when he would chair regarding how we can properly keep the materials safely in the warehouses. After the study sessions, each group would convene sessions for discussion, but we just speculated. We just concluded that Mr. Khieu Sampan chaired the meeting and that he the sessions, and he would be surprised to learn that other units did not have enough to eat. So we just during this private discussion or conversation we believe that Mr. Khieu Sampan could have been surprised to learn that members or cadre members did not have enough to eat, and I still stand by this statement.
Je voudrais, pour vous rafraîchir la mémoire,
Again, to refresh your memory, I'd like to read an extract from your second interview with DC Cam in 2004. In French, the ERN is 00753000. In Khmer, I'll repeat the French, 00753020. In Khmer, 0002067. And in English, 007033031. And there you talk about diet with Steve, who is questioning you, the diet inside the warehouse, and Steve says, was that sufficient? And you answer, rice was shared among us, but there was not gruel. We had rice of this paper size. The rice was divided into 4 shares, one for each person, but there was no food ratio. But we never ate gruel. My question to you is, if you never ate gruel, how is it that Mr. Khieu Sampan could have been so startled to see people doing precisely that?
The President, Mr. Witness, please hold on. International Court Prosecutor, you may now proceed first.
Your Honours, I object to this question. It's seeking to elicit entirely speculative evidence to ask this witness what his speculation, what he was speculating about what was in Khieu Samphan's mind is not appropriate. There's no evidential value in what he thinks Khieu Samphan thought when he had no discussion with Khieu Samphan about this. So we object to the question. It's entirely speculative.
Monsieur,
Mr. Witness, I've just quoted a statement about the rations you received in the warehouse. Is it accurate? Is that what you did say to the person who was asking you questions on that day?
Response. Yes, it is correct. And with your help to refresh my memory, I can confirm that we did not have enough to eat. The rice was steamed and they shared into 4 shares so that we could have this rice. But normally our normal meal would be nothing but gruel.
nous allons passer à un autre sujet parce que
I think it's best if we move on to another subject, time being somewhat limited. Another point that I'd like to draw your attention to, Mr. Witness, is the observations you made during Khieu Samphan's visit. And in your talks with DCCAM, in French ERN 00753016, in Khmer 0002063, and in English 007030028, and on the subject of Mr. Khieu Samphan, what you say is that Khieu Samphan had an accessory set of duties. His work was social in nature. The President of the Presidium did not do vital work. All of the regulations were handled by the party. That's why when he went to working meetings, even by looking at his shoes or car, you could see that he wasn't living in luxury like the others, and that's what I saw when he came to see the warehouse. He had an old car and his shoes were worn out, and these were the accoutrements he used to wear when he went off to work, and he didn't swank around like the others. Do you hold by these observations you made, and do they in fact correspond to what you saw at the time?
The President, Counsel, please, witness, please hold on. International Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Your Honours, I object because there are about 3 or 4 different assertions lumped into one. They should be put to the witness individually. We heard earlier this witness had no knowledge of the upper levels of government and CPK. He's now being asked to opine about the powers of the Presidium. Now, if my learned friend wishes to ask him about his prior statements, she should do so one at a time so that we can then obtain specific answers on each fact and understand what the witness's evidence is based on, as opposed to lumping together a whole series of fact, including speculation.
Monsieur le Président, je réponds brièvement.
Briefly, Mr. President, I'm not really mixing everything up together. I'm simply quoting an entire answer by the witness to a question. So I have not divided up different statements. He was there at the interview and he was indeed saying this. or rather my question is to ask him if this is indeed what he said, and the Chamber will appreciate on the basis of his response, but all I did was to actually quote a part of his response without doing any cutting or pasting or anything of that kind. If, Mr. President, we can continue, I'll repeat my question. Was this description that you gave of Mr. Khieu Samphan at this visit to the warehouse a good reflection of what you did indeed see at the time?
Response: yes, it was. It is true, and I stand by that statement.
Un dernier point à évoquer.
One final point. You made reference to education sessions with Khieu Samphan. What was the subject of those sessions?
Response: I did not understand the topics or the objective of the study sessions, but I still recall some of the instructions he provided to us. He just asked us to manage the materials, to keep the materials in the warehouses properly, and how to maintain them.
Si je comprends bien.
If my understanding is therefore correct, Mr. Witness, the training that you were given by Mr. Khieu Samphan was on the technical aspects of warehouse management. Is that correct?
Response: yes, it is correct.
Est-ce qu'il vous a.
Did he give you political teaching at any particular juncture?
Response: no, he didn't, because he only instructed us, he only talked to us about our duties as the people who had to make sure that the produce by the people who had to work very hard be properly managed, because we had to be honest to the people who did their best to harvest these produce.
Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now, this is really my last point. In your two interviews with DC CAM, and for that matter also to the investigators from the OCIJ, you referred to Khoi Tun's confession, and in the different statements it emerges that you heard that confession on a tape recording, but in your statement to the co-investigating judges, the French ERN is 00524389, in Khmer 00172050, and the subsequent page as well, and in English 00205112. You say that while the tape was playing, Khieu Samphan was present, and then when you're asked how many times did Nonchair and Kyo Sampong play Koitun's confessions? You say it was just Nonchair who played the confessions, which I heard only once. We seem to be in a contradiction here, so what we can do is listen to the recording of your statement to the OCIJ. This is audio file D94/16R, and in this, when the recordings were played, it emerges that you said that Mr. Kyo Sampong was not there. My question to you is, do you remember this incident, and do you confirm what you said to the co-investigating judges? And I'll just tell you the minutes on the recording. 1 hour 09:37 seconds, 1 hour 10:52 seconds, that's the span. And when you were asked, did KS participate in that listening to a recording, and you answered no, can I ask you therefore if whether or not Kyo Sampong was present for that?
Response. If my memory serves me very well, he was not present. Perhaps it was a kind of misunderstanding, but I remember clearly I said that Kyo Sampong was not present.
Je vous remercie pour...
I'd like to thank you for giving me your time, and now I would like to hand over to my colleague to continue with the questioning. Thank you, Mr. Witness.
Counsel Kung Sam-on. Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, Your Honors, and good morning to you, Mr. Ruo Sui. I am Kung Sam-on, counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampong. I have just a few questions regarding your statements. Just now, you said about K25 office, the office which sent out their requests to your superior by the name of Rương to request for items to be redistributed from your warehouses. Can you tell the chamber, please, what K25 was? Response. To respond to your question, I may say that I do not know what this office was and who was overly in charge of it. I said it clearly. I only knew that requests were sent out from this office for the items to be redistributed from the warehouses I worked at. So that's all I know, and I only knew the code numbers on the letters of requests, and I know nothing else. Counsel, can you tell the chamber also where you found the code number? On which form of letters did you find this code? Response: I don't remember this. I know for sure that every time document was sent in a form of request or invoice, for example, Rương would then pass them on to me, telling me that the requests were made from this particular unit or from Office 25. Then I would then have to follow his instruction by redistributing the materials to the requester. Question: do you know a person by the name of Kieu No? Response: can you please repeat that question? Counsel: I am asking whether you know a person by the name of Kieu No. Response: no, I don't know him. I don't know him. Question: have you ever received or redistributed materials from your warehouses to the people from the southwest zone? Response: yes, I have and I did, but sometimes different people would be sent in from the southwest. With that, I don't know who was who for sure. Counsel: thank you. Do you know the person by the name of Sen? Response: no, I don't. Question: I may wish to state here and for your information that Mr. Kieu No was giving testimony here before this chamber, and there is a document E1/90.1, which is the relevant document when he gave the testimony. In the morning session, Mr. Kieu No, on the 21st of June 2012, said and then he said before 11:44 a.m. that I had a nephew-in-law who was attached to Mr. Khieu Samphan, and through Sen I contacted Khieu Samphan, and it was the approach he could reach Khieu Samphan, or Khieu Samphan could reach him to request for some materials. And on the same document at 15 hours 14 minutes 2 seconds, you were asked a question. So rather, he was asked a question about K22, who was the chairperson of K22, and he said K22 was overly in charge by Sen, his nephew-in-law, and Sen was with Mr. Khieu Samphan, and he said he did not know more about this. My question to you now is, do you ever know what K22 was? Response: I have heard of this office, or the name itself. I never had any contact with people there. Question: Did people from K22 make any request for materials from your warehouses? Question. I would like to restate the question. Did K22 ever send requests to you to redistribute materials to zones? Response. I cannot remember this because during the course of my work, I had to distribute materials to different places, and after the materials were transported out of the warehouses, I would never have a good track of where, whom, or who would have been the requesters. Question. So it is fair to say that it is not your... you don't remember that K22 ever made such request for materials? Response. It is correct to say so. I don't remember this. Council, thank you. This morning, and also in your statement you gave before the co-investigators, you mentioned about the meetings and study sessions in which Khieu Samphan attended. You said that the sessions were conducted annually and that you had attended them on 4 occasions. Do you still stand by your position? Response. Yes, I do. The statement I have provided was correct.
Question. You confirm about the study session that you attended with Mr. Khieu Samphan, and Mr. Khieu Samphan advised you to take care of the equipment, for example. I would like to ask you to confirm. On the 5th of January 1979, did you remember attending the meeting with Mr. Khieu Samphan on that day? Response. Yes, of course, I attended the meeting, the study session with him on the 5th. Question. Can you confirm when did the study session start? Response. I do not remember exactly about the time, but of course I remember that I attended a meeting on the 5th. Question. Can you say whether it was conducted in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening? Response. Of course, when we attended a meeting, we would go to that place in the morning, but of course I do not remember about the starting time. Question. Who attended that study session at that time? Were there many participants? And where did they come from? Response. I did not know them. I just know that I just focus only on the people from the warehouse unit only. I did not pay attention to the other. Question. So how many people from the warehouse unit attended that study session? Response. I do not remember the exact number, but of course, the leader of the battalion, company, and the group chief attended that study session. Question. So what did Mr. Kilsampon talk about or lecture during that period? Response. After the situation in Phnom Penh changed, he called us so that he could give advice, inform us about the situation in Cambodia, and he told us that we had to leave Phnom Penh temporarily. I do not remember the contents of the other. I just remember that he told us to leave Phnom Penh temporarily. Question. Do you have anything else to add? Response. No, I have nothing else to add. Counsel, thank you very much for your response to my question. I do not have any other question. The President. Next, we would like to hand over to the co-prosecution to put question to the witness.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning again to you, Your Honours and Counsel. And good morning to you, Mr. Ro Soy, and thank you for coming to assist the court with your knowledge of the events during the democratic Kampuchea regime. My name is Tariq Abdulhaq, and I will be asking you a number of questions together with my colleague from the Office of the Co-Prosecutors about the topics you've been discussing this morning. While it's fresh in our minds, I might start with this last meeting that you just described, which took place on the 5th of January. Focusing on who attended the meeting, and I'm looking here at your statement to the researchers from DCCAM. This is document 19.158, and the relevant Khmer ERNs are Khmer 00008336, French 00899-501, and English 00710-554. First, you were asked what leadership levels attended that meeting, and you responded, there was just Kilsampon. And the next question was, who else did he call to attend the meeting? You responded, quote, they were from different ministries and offices. They were the leaders from the army, industry, commerce, and state warehouses. Is that correct, Mr. Soy, that people that attended the meeting included leaders from the army, industry, and commerce, apart from the state warehouses?
Response. Yes, it is correct. But as I have clarified earlier, I said that I want to say that I do not know them. But of course, people from different ministry and offices attended that meeting, that session.
What level of military people were present at that meeting, from what you were able to observe?
Response. I do not know them. I just saw their uniforms, but I did not know about their ranks. But if those people came from the warehouse, the state warehouses, I would know them.
You said Khieu Samphan called you to attend this meeting. How was it that he called you? How did he summon people to this meeting?
Response. So when Mr. Khieu Samphan called us, this does not mean that he called us directly, but of course, Mr. Rương, he may told Mr. Rương, and then Mr. Rương told us to go over there to attend the session.
Was that the usual procedure where you attended sessions or meetings with Khieu Samphan? Was that the usual procedure that Ruong, the head of state warehouses, would tell you that you needed to attend this meeting or these meetings?
Response. So at the time, the situation in Cambodia had changed. And at the time, he called us to attend that meeting because maybe he wanted to tell us about the change in the situation in Cambodia during that period. So this is my own conclusion.
Thank you. Now, looking at what was discussed at the meeting, and you have already given some information, but I'll return to your statement to see if we can focus in a bit more on some of the details. So, Your Honours, this is the same document and the same ERNs that I provided earlier. It's a continuation of that text. You were asked the following question. During that study meeting, did he speak about any problem with the enemy burrowing within? Your response, yes, he did. Question, what did he say? Your response, he said that based on his assessment, the current situation might be partly caused by some internal problem without which the outside enemy is not able to attack us. Is that correct that Mr. Khieu Samphan said that the problems with the outside enemy would not have occurred if it wasn't for internal enemies, based on his assessment?
Response. Yes, that is correct. And I stand by my statement.
In the passage we looked at earlier, you said that he talked about the future plan. Can you be a bit more specific as to what plan he said that you and others were to follow?
Response. I would like you to repeat your question.
Of course. In the passage I read earlier, In fact, I'll read it again. I may have skipped this part, so I'll read it again in order to be complete. You said the following as to the meeting. They were from different ministries and offices. They were the leaders from the army, industry, commerce, and state warehouse. In the meeting, he explained the situation of the Vietnamese attack, the temporary retreat, and the future plan. So if we can start perhaps by being a bit more specific than I attempted initially. Is that correct, that he explained the situation of the Vietnamese attack first?
Response. Yes, it is correct. Usually during the meeting, when meetings were conducted, there must be clear objective, there must be clear purposes. And of course, he said that we left the city temporarily only, and then we could plan the attack back against the Vietnamese troops.
So do I understand correctly that he said that the plan was to leave Phnom Penh temporarily and then to plan an attack against the Vietnamese forces? Am I summarizing your statement correctly?
Respond, yes, it is correct.
Thank you. Now, looking at some of the other study sessions that you attended, or earlier study sessions you attended with Khieu Samphan, you said they were about, I believe the word used was technical matters or something of that nature. I'll read to you a passage from your statement and see if that assists in elaborating further. So again, this is document 19.158, and the relevant ERNs for this section in Khmer 00008305-6, French 008994734, and English 007105331. The question was asked, was only Khieu Samphan alone who taught administration? And you responded, yes. He called us more often to study the administration. A little bit further down, you say his role was to call people to study and to set up the administrative structure. As for the internal issues, it was Pol Pot who taught them. Question: did you ever study with Nguyen Chia? Answer: yes, I used to study with him also. Question: what did Nguyen Chia teach? He taught politics. Question: what was the difference between politics and administration? Answer: they were the same thing, but one was about how to organize village and commune structure and put them in order. This is just my example. And then explaining that further, a little bit below, you say this: on the administration side, they talked about how to organize the village structure and how to guard and protect it. So I'll start with that last part first. Is that right, that in the sessions on administrative matters, you talked about how to organise the village structure and how to guard and protect it?
Respond, yes, it is correct.
And when you say that a little bit earlier in that passage, that politics and administration were the same thing, but one dealt with how to organise villages and commune structures. Is that correct as well, that politics and administration were the same thing, or perhaps interrelated?
Respond. From my own analysis, the administration and politics could not be the same. Administrative work, in other words, politics did not focus on the arrangement or organization. They just make the decision. Administration refers to the implementation, something that has been determined, and then we have to implement. So this is administration. But politics is something about setting the policy.
Thank you. So politics is about setting the policy and administration is about implementing. Is that correct?
Respond, yes, it is correct.
Now let's look at some of the things that you've said Nguyen Chia talked about, and you said he talked about politics. In his study sessions, did Nguyen Chia ever talk about traitors or internal enemies?
Response. During the study session with Mr. Nguyen Chia, he taught us politics. He taught us about the goal, the future goal. This is what he taught us. But I cannot remember the date or the detailed contents of the study.
Can I just have a brief answer from you? Did he talk about traitors or internal enemies?
Response. I used to study with him, and I cannot remember the confession made by Koi Thun, played by him. But of course, he used to describe, to mention traitors. But I do not know about the traitors in detail. And I did not pay attention to those traitors at all, to that issue at all.
We'll come back to what you knew in a minute. But if I can just refresh your memory with an extract from your interview with the investigators. This is E3/469. You have a copy of that document in front of you. And if you look at the page beginning with the Khmer ERN 00172-052, French 00524-390, and English 00205-113. You were asked the following question, quote, other than Nguyen Chia playing the tape recording, did he speak about other traitors in the study sessions? Answer, there was talk about traitors. I heard that Sao Pim was a traitor. The person who said that was Nuon Chea. He said that Sao Pim of the East Zone was a traitor and Koi Tun of the North Zone was a traitor. Is that a correct summary of what you heard in that session when Nuon Chea spoke?
Response: yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Did he ever talk about what was to be done with traitors or how they should be dealt with?
Response: Besides the point that he mentioned, he also advised us to conduct the investigation within our unit to search for more traitors. This is what I can recall.
And on how many separate occasions do you recall Nuon Chea saying that? Was it only once? Or was it twice? Was it, because you said to us you attended these sessions on an annual, yearly basis. So did he say this more than once? Or was it just one time?
Response: I cannot remember exactly. I just remember that he really said that, but I do not remember the exact date.
In that same passage we were just looking or reading from, you said the following: I knew that Pong had been arrested. I learned that through conversations with people in the unit. They said that Pong had betrayed Pol Pot. Can you describe what conversations these were? Was that part of your ongoing meetings within the unit, or was it a casual conversation with your colleagues?
Response: regarding the conversation here, the conversation took place after I came back from the study session. My friends in my unit, I had conversation with my friends in my unit. So after what happened, the friends within the same unit here would talk with each other, would discuss, and then they talk about the disappearance of this person, that person. But of course, we did not know why those people disappeared, but we just knew that these people disappeared. The President, it is now time for lunch adjournment. And the court will resume at 1:30 this afternoon. Court officers are directed to assist the witness during the break and bring him back to the courtroom at 1:30. Security personnel are instructed to take Mr. Kilsampon to the holding cell and bring him back to the courtroom before 1:30 p.m. The court is adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ